Boats spend 90% of their life on a trailer, so that trailer better be a good one. Sometimes you can snag one off Craigslist or off the Facebook Marketplace, get a cheap jet ski trailer, but to get a trailer custom made brand new for your specific application is going to be extremely expensive. Much more expensive than it would be just do it yourself like this. So a lot of times this is the better option for most, but there is an easier way to do it, like snagging a kit trailer, one that you can find from most hardware stores. But this trailer isn't perfect. There are caveats to it and things you will have to do to make it right. So we're going to build these up side by sides and go through the pros and cons of building a trailer from scratch versus getting a kit trailer like this. So this channel is no stranger to making trailers because, well, boats need trailers, so we need trailers. So I've got a whole playlist of trailer videos, quite a few of them now. I looked through it, I couldn't believe there were so many. So I'm going to put that playlist down here. Everything from retrofitting old bass boat trailers to like smaller boats like John boats, just converting jet ski trailers into kayak trailers, building all trailers from scratch is all here. Check it out. And these are the times. So if you're only interested in one part of this build, skip to the other one. So this kayak is large and it's modified and needs a trailer, so I'm gonna have to make one. Step 1, source your material. Find your local metal shop. It'll be the cheapest you can get per span of material itself. We're gonna do the entire thing out of steel. With lightweight trailers, you can get away with as little as 16 gauge. It won't last very long, so you definitely want 14 or at least 12 gauge to give you a pretty good long lasting result. So this is 12 gauge 2x4s, which is the equivalent of 1/8 inch thick. If you're crafting a trailer for a full size boat, you'll want to go 3/16 just for longevity. As for the middle, generally it's not this complicated, but because I'm trying to make a trailer that will exactly fit this fill-free Dorado, I already mapped out so it'll cradle that kayak, so even if it gets hot, the kayak won't warp when it's sitting on the trailer. And you'll notice here we ran beams from the back to the front. I like to do this for small watercraft for the simple reason of I can make a platform over this, and that could either be used for additional storage, rods, gear, whatever, or even as a pop-up tent. I actually thought about making this a kayak pop-up tent combo, like an ultimate little camp out, pack out rig. I haven't done that yet, but that idea is not off the table, not at all. Before we can even get to that, we'll obviously need a trailer tongue, so we'll figure out something there. We're also going to need components because this thing needs wheels first before anything. Those include hangers, like this, a leaf spring, and a light duty leaf spring, the lightest one you can find. You'll need one set of solid hangers, and the other hangers swing on a pivot. The pivot consists of linkage bars that attach to a smaller hanger, which then attach to the leaf spring. This is what allows the leaf spring to do its job. It'll expand and contract as it goes down the road. They're pretty easy to put together, but special attention needs to be put towards lining them up perfectly. If they are off even a little bit, you'll have serious issues with tires and the trailer not doing what it's supposed to do. To complete this, I used a drywall ruler that I seem to use for everything else except for drywall. And if you know the angle-to-angle trick with a measuring tape, that also is a good thing to have. Now, let's move on to the hardware. So it gives you this hardware. It has these little notch, these teeth. That end's supposed to just pull straight into the linkage so it can never come out. So on the other end, you're going to use that. Do not use that on the end with the teeth, or you'll just grind the teeth off as you're pulling the bolt in. Once this part's done, they're all straight, all the same length, you can put on the axle. In this particular case, we welded drop spindles to a 1/4 inch piece of 2-inch square tubing. We welded additional plates on each side of the spindles to the tubing for just that additional security. What this allows us to do is use a much larger tire without making the trailer too far tall to where it causes problems with you actually trying to launch it. This will help tremendously in shallow launch pads. You can find standard axles in trailer shops and other places rather frequently, but I've never really seen offset axles like this found anywhere. When I went to the trailer shop to get all these parts, they just had those spindles, meaning it's more or less implied that they're going to have to be custom put on something. Which makes sense because every trailer is different. Different lengths, different widths. Yep, alright. Point is, if you go through all the hassle to build one of these trailers, you might as well make it with this. Alright, so how this is going to mount is, we got these, and these mount right over that bolt on the, that mounts over the bolt, the middle. And then the U-bolts just go right around the tube. So we got square U-bolts because it's a square tube. Obviously you need round if you have a traditional rounded axle, but since we made the whole axle, we're using these.
Hold on, hold on, is it lining up?
I don't know yet.
It's way the fuck over here. No.
You drilled the hole.
I did it where you marked, dude. You gave me like a huge margin for error.
I know. I meant to cut all that out.
All of it?
Well, yeah, because you don't know how to measure. No, you're so far off.
Now let's move on to the actual hubs themselves. We're going to be using tapered hubs because these are tapered spindles, meaning they'll take a much bigger load with the biggest bearing being in the back. You'll also need marine grease. Beware, because they make non-marine grease. I don't know why you would make non-marine grease. It's like the same price. You'll also need seals and these taper bearings that go on the back. The back ones are much bigger than the front. Make sure you get the right sizes. And you'll also need lock nuts, carter pins, bushings if they need them, and bearing buddies if that's something you want to do. So just go ahead and get some gloves. This stuff's nasty. Pack it in, roll it around, pack it in again if you need. Just make sure those bearings are adequately sealed in there. And then once it's done in there, get a big goop of that stuff and put it in the actual hub itself. Go ahead and place the bearing in there, and once it's there, we can actually put the seal in here. You got to make sure the seal is perfectly flat and level to get it in. So I know they have special tools for this, but we just had a random piece of tubing lying around. It did the trick. When you get the spindles, not the hub, but the spindles specifically, should come with washers, nuts, nut locks, and a carter pin that links into all those things. You want to get that bolt tight and then back off a quarter turn. You want just the littlest bit of play, but not so much that everything starts wiggling around in there. And then there is the bearing buddy. So there are two options to self-lubricate grease into the hub over time for maintenance. And one is the spindle has a hole that you can actually just put a zert fitting into, and then there's the bearing buddy. You see the zert fitting right in the middle of it. It's a lot easier to use the bearing buddy because the rubber cap goes over it, or this little place cap. It's just so much easier to access it. The disadvantage to them is that people like to rip them off, and then you're just exposed. And people are less likely to mess with your trailer with a standard cup on it. Now that that part's completely done, we can move on to this. That is actually 3x3 by 3/16 square tubing that I welded directly to that 2x4 and then branched out other ones to link to it. And I branched it out so I would have room for a fold-away hitch because this thing is going to go into a small garage. And most importantly, you're going to have to make a bottom bumper at the very front of the tongue. That way, if it ever flies off your truck, the tongue doesn't just dig into the road and get ruined. Like, the bumper will allow it to skid down the road until you're able to recover the trailer at some sort. We forgot to make conduit, so we ran a 1x3 by 14 gauge piece of tubing all the way underneath, and that can be the conduit for the wires to go all the way back to the trailer lights. And it also strengthens the bottom up. And of course, bending the pipe to a wishbone is what most trailers do, and it's really strong that way because there's no cuts and welds, and the weld's not strong as the parent metal. So we'll be actually welding on some more plates around those joint areas just to really strengthen that area up since it's so far up and the taper is so close. But really, I can never see this trailer ever failing because the kayak itself is not heavy enough to even make the leaf strings buckle, and it's a thing. You gotta think about that. Make sure you get the lightest duty hardware if you're gonna do a kayak trailer or a light boat. That way, your trailer's just not springing up in the air because the boat itself doesn't have enough weight. But aside from that, this trailer worked like a champ, perfect for this setup and all the obnoxious things I put in this kayak earlier. Check out the kayak video, it's up here in the iCard. It was a crazy experience to mod something like that, but we ended up doing things nobody else has done in the industry yet. But now that this is done, it's only one of two trailers that I actually need, and in doing all that, that was pretty exhausting. For something so simple, it's just like a frame and tires and some wires, like, it's really exhausting to build a trailer. I don't want to do that again, but I have to do something because I just got this new boat, and you could just float this thing in and out of your truck bed conservatively, but for how I want to run it, it needs a trailer. So I'm going to go ahead and get the Harbor Freight kit trailer because I do not want to build another one from scratch. Hey guys, so now that you're revamping that old trailer of yours, let's talk about that boat. You know that we have everything you need to revamp a boat from scratch? Check us out here. So what do we have here? A Hallmaster kit trailer that folds and has a pretty generous capacity for the size. The instructions are super easy to follow. Most of it's just picture diagrams. You don't even have to read it. It also comes with a slew of things that cost a lot of money. Rims and tires, complete with hubs and seals and bearings and grease. If you keep the trailer as is, it's completely bolt-on. You do not need to weld it. Here's the bag of hardware that puts the entire trailer together. Comes with a hitch tongue made to fit on 2-inch square tubing. Comes with leaf springs, hangers, like the whole thing. All that stuff, including fenders, if you part all that individually like we did in the last custom trailer, it is so much more money. Like, all that stuff costs probably more than this whole trailer itself. Actually, it does. And then you haven't even got to buying the steel yet. Plus the time and labor it takes to make a custom trailer from scratch. The stuff in here is maybe a little janky and cheap, and you can tell that. I mean, what would you expect for a trailer this cheap? But it should still all work pretty seamlessly, so let's go ahead and put it together. This kit is cake to put together. It's just 3/8 hardware and a bunch of individual pieces that bolt together like so. As long as you follow the instructions, you don't try to skip ahead, and you don't mix one for the other, which is pretty easy to do, it's cake. It's essentially 2 of these squares, and these are the hinges. You got to put the hinges on the right side of each square, and then put them together. Once you have both sides built, and you make sure you don't mix any parts, because there is just a slight difference between each square, take the first square, and then go ahead and attach the tongue parts to it. These are the tilting arms that allow the trailer to be a tilt trailer, and it's finished by a bracket up front. That is where you stick the trailer tongue on. Once you combine both sides with the hinges, you are now ready to put the hangers on. It has spots that stiffen up the area right where the axle is supposed to be, which minimizes flex on both pieces together. Okay, so interesting turn of events. Really the only part that folds is the front on these pins. That's fine, whatever. I have this backwards, it's supposed to go the other way. On here, this kind of surprised me. I mean, they made a hinge system here, and I'm not quite sure why they even bothered with the hinges, because they make you bolt it here, and then they make you completely secure it with these bolts, carriage bolts and standard bolts all together. And that's where, you know, the arm for the leaf springs go. And so I don't even know why they have the hinge. That gave me false hope that the whole trailer like folded, but it doesn't, unless you have to really go in and permanently disassemble like several major nuts and bolts. We'll go ahead and install the leaf springs right there. And the instructions, it's pretty easy. The leaf springs are pretty easy. They go right into those brackets that mount right to the bottom. Then the axle goes on, and they have all the hardware. Everything just kind of seamlessly goes on there. When I posted a short of this, everybody told me to get that blue grease out of the bearings because it's junk and it will not last. So one of the things you probably should do is to get all that blue grease out and repack it with marine grease. Now that that's all assembled, the only thing left to do is place this thing right on that front bracket, like so. That's pretty clean looking setup. There's just one problem. It's really short. Unless you're gonna run an 8-foot rig on it, that trailer tongue is way too short, and we're gonna have to modify that. So we're not gonna be able to get away cleanly without having to do anything here. We're gonna add a few things. Like for one, you're gonna have to add a trailer jack. That's it right there on the left-hand side. But to solve the tongue issue, there's no way we're gonna be able to do that without welding something. And for anybody wondering, I know I welded the first trailer just flat out, and then maybe you guys might not know how to weld, but I'll tell you what, welding steel is really easy. Welding aluminums and stainless and some of those other ones, that takes a little bit of time to really get down, but you could get steel down in a day. For about $400 to $500, you can get a 120 amp welder with flux core and a helmet and gloves and maybe just a long sleeve cotton shirt, and you could start welding right now. You could do these things pretty seamlessly. Since this is a 2x4, it's thicker than the parent beams there for the tilt, so we're gonna have to kind of recreate that top bracket thingy. We're gonna do that with 3/16 inch angle that I have left over from another trailer that I built about a month ago. While I show you this process, I actually posted a short of this video, not long form like this, and it got a ton of feedback from you guys. A lot of people say these things are monstrous death traps, and the only way to get any real performance out of them is to weld them anyways. I can't confirm or deny that, but I can tell you the only way to get any real size boat on this thing is to weld anyways. One thing I didn't take into account that is really important is this whole trailer is powder coated, and that's huge because the other custom one we did, we had to do this, which we used Ace Rust Stop. That's the best paint and primer spray on stuff you're going to be able to get, so that's what we used here. Ultimately, I think the black looks better than the red. I might just paint the whole thing black anyways. And I built this trailer initially for the light skiff, check these boats out on tvnation.net. They are the most awesome 1 to 2 man small rig that you can stick anywhere. That thing's completely truck bettable because I was going to run an outboard and some other major things and make this one of more of my primary boats here on the lake. But I'm also going to make a video about how to make a custom all aluminum micro trailer that you can like fold into a truck bed or fit inside that toy hauler there, where it's not so invasive like this. This is for like long travels, but we're going to have to see how well it does on those travels because the trailer does seem too good to be true. I mean, it was like 600 bucks, 500. I don't remember the exact cost, but it was really cheap for all of that. And it's all there and built in like an hour. And in my personal experience through life, something that seems too good to be true generally is. It's generally really good up front, but the longer it goes on, the worse it gets. Kind of an unwritten rule. Things that are painful at the beginning generally are rewarding toward the end in the long run, and things that are really pleasurable up front, not so much. But we've already built it and it's too late to turn back now, so we might as well finish what we started. Because that boat is symmetrically flat on the bottom, I made a flat surface with rails to kind of guide it right in with those 2x4s, some outdoor carpet glue, cheap marine bunk carpet from the hardware store, a staple gun, and this is ready for the boat to go on. It fits like a glove. Look at that. That fits actually perfect. The carpet kind of singed it up to be perfect. Yeah, it's like right on the money. Right, conclusion about the Harbor Freight trailer. I liked it. I mean, it does exactly what it needs to do. This boat is not terribly heavy. It's very light, and this is a light duty trailer. The hubs are rated, I think, at 55 miles an hour or something. I've heard people say these are death traps. They fall apart, and I've had people say they've had them for years with no problems. I think that obviously, if as long as you're wary and you know what it is, then you'll be okay. I wouldn't be like pressing this like it's a real durable trailer. I wouldn't be taking it down fire roads or serious like off back country and then hoping that it comes out all right. But trailing it down to the local lake 10 minutes away, you know, pretty much unscathed. It's gonna do very well. But we obviously know the custom made trailer is the way to go. And since you have to do welding on both of them anyways, you might as well just go the extra mile and do it. Even though it's more expensive than the kit trailer, it's tons cheaper to do it by yourself than to have somebody custom do it. And as far as welding goes, have a buddy come and inspect your welds, or just have somebody show you, or watch YouTube videos like I did. But learning how to weld steel with flux core is extremely easy. You do not have to be in the NBA to play basketball, so you do not have to be a certified welder to weld. If you're a DIY person on any platform, it is a necessary skill to have. Anyways, thanks guys for all the help and support with this video. I really appreciate it. Check us out on Patreon, check us out at tvnation.net. Check out all our platforms. We're all over social media: TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, everywhere. See you guys out there. Thank you much.